Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. Welcome back. This time in this session we're going to be talking about the stabiliser behaviour type. So we've already covered off on the dominant and direct and also the influences. So this time, stabilisers. Now, people with stabilising tendencies tend to be the nurturers. And if I was to put a description around the archetype or an archetype, I would say it's the mother archetype. So stabilisers tend to have more feminine kind of energy and a more feminine style, and that's not a difference between male female. It's just bringing in those feminine traits, which is a really, really lovely thing for both males and females. As we go through, I'm going to, like I did in the last couple of sessions, just give you a few people that you might be able to think about and associate that S style with. I need to find another term for S style because S style is a lot of sisses. Anyway, let's move on. So the kind of people that you might be thinking about in terms of the stabiliser type or the steady type, people like Michele Obama. She is very much in that stabiliser space, and if you've had the opportunity to read her book or even listen to it on Audible, which is an awesome book to read, you'll see very clearly that she has very much those stabiliser and the real nurturing tendencies. So Michele Obama, people like Mahatma Ghandi, he's very much in that same space, that very nurturing space. And I was also going to, I was thinking actually about Mother Teresa. And most people know a little bit about Mother Teresa, and she is definitely in that nurturing space. If you want to think about some characters, and I've covered off on a few characters to think about, so Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, he is very nurturing. Wasn't in the show long, but anyway, for the little time that he was there, he certainly was very nurturing. If you're a watcher of or a viewer of Friends, and you might even be watching reruns because it went on for, I don't know, something like 13 years. Rachel very much has those nurturing tendencies. Lord of the Rings, think about Frodo. And if you're a Star Trek fan, then Dr. Bones McCoy. I'm not a Star Trek fan, my husband is, but he tells me that it's McCoy or Bones. So there's some people that you might relate those traits or tendencies to. So what is a stabiliser type? Well, as I said, they are very much the nurturing, very much the mother archetype. They are really calm people, and they're very, very helpful. They're the type of people who want to understand when you're doing work in particular, how do we do this and how do we bring people on the journey? And I do this because they are very nurturing and they're all encompassing. They want to bring people into the fold. They really value comfort and connection because they're very much that people type of person. They really think connection is important, and in their really nurturing style, comfort and being comfortable is incredibly important to them. That can also have some challenges because there might be times that they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. So maybe they want to push ahead and do something a little bit different, but there's a real fear because doing something different and being in your courage zone is being out of your comfort zone, and that is really testing of these people. When you're working with them in a sales sense, they take a little bit more convincing than the dominant and the influencer behaviour types. They love to understand the social proof. So they like to know a little bit maybe about history, but the thing that's most important to them is social proof. And they don't want to be pressured. If you're working with them or if you're providing them with a solution to something, you'd probably be best inclined to give them the details they need, and particularly around that social proof, but not put any pressure on them to make a decision straight away, because they could nod and agree and then make a decision that's quite contrary. So you need to make sure that when you're working with them, you put on your nurturing hat and you take them on the journey. For nurturers or the stabilisers, I mentioned that they could be people pleasers. So in a really dysfunctional sense, they could very much become the people pleaser. And that's not great for you, and that's not great for them either, because because they're always putting other people's needs first, they sometimes forget about their own self-care. So they could tend to burn out because they're putting your needs and other people's needs before their own. And they will always, or nearly always, fill up other people's cups before they fill their own. So if you're a stabiliser behaviour type and you recognise that, make sure that you really look after yourself and fill up your own cup before you can actually pour out of that cup and fill up everybody else. Other dysfunctional traits is that they could be too willing to pitch in because they want to help people and they want to maybe people please in that dysfunctional sense. They're really willing to pitch in because they just want to get in and they want to do stuff and they want to help. But again, that can really exhaust you and really deplete your energy. So you need to have some time to do things for yourself, and don't overcommit by pitching in for everything. Because stabilisers are people that want to pitch in, they could also be taken advantage of. Sometimes nurturers or stabilisers can be a little bit indecisive. One thing they love to do, which I mentioned earlier, is they like to bring people into the fold. So they will sometimes try to get a decision based around consensus because they're a bit indecisive themselves. That's just something to be aware of, because there are times when, as a stabiliser, you need to make a decision. Or if you're working with a stabiliser, perhaps you need to help them out in making a decision, and you need to empower them to make a decision and help them feel good about the decision that they are making. Because they can be indecisive, they can also get very stuck on the status quo. So if you've got people who are hard to shift because they're stuck on the status quo, again, you need to take them on that journey and provide some stability for people who are in that space and nurture them along. They can be stubborn and they can be a little bit passive aggressive. So they might nod and say, yeah, I'm going to give you an indication that I'm going to go along with that, but actually I'm not. So when I turn away, I'm going to go, no way, we're not doing that. So if you're working with them, or if that is you, just be really mindful of that and work on how you can be a little bit more assertive. Which brings me to the point of improving performance. If you're a stabiliser or a nurturer, or you are managing somebody who is, then some of the things that you can guide them to do or provide them advice around helping them improve their performance will be actually being more assertive and speaking out. It can be hard for them to do, particularly if they've got somebody there who's pretty direct and they're impatient. Nurturers and stabilisers will actually feel pressured to say stuff that maybe they don't even necessarily mean, because there is that pressure there. And that's why when I talked about the D type and also the I type, really important to hold the space, because people like nurturers and stabilisers, they need time to think about it and to actually feel comfortable to speak out. So really work on how you can act now and think less about it. Don't be overthinking. It's really easy for stabilisers to overthink things. Try and keep emotional control when you're doing that, because again, that kind of pressure can make you feel a little bit emotional. But really try and work to embrace the change and embrace new things, because good things happen. Good things come when you step out of your comfort zone and step into your courage zone and you embrace those new things. But take the leap and do it anyway, because you take the leap, and as you're uncomfortable, over time, like with anything, you start to become comfortable and you get confidence. So actions very much come before confidence. If you take the action, you'll get confident. So there's some things to remember for the nurturers and or stabilisers. Keep those things in mind when you're working with them, if you're managing them, if you're selling something to them, or if in fact you have those traits as well, because as a group of DISC people, we all bring really important things to the table. And I mentioned really early on that not one behaviour type is better than the other. We all bring something really awesome to the table. So we need to really be quite respectful of what other people bring. Anyway, I trust you got some really useful information out of that. I look forward to catching you on the next session, where we're going to be talking about the techie people, those compliant types, because there's some really interesting information and contribution that those behaviour types make into our group as well. So watch this space. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.